Hello everyone. Today I want to talk about the book market and digitalization, and in particular I want to look for an answer to a question: has the ebook disruption been cancelled? As of late there have been plenty of articles citing that ebook sales are down and print sales have experienced a resurgence. And I want to examine these claims and see what's up. Let's take a look. So, when it comes to book sales figures, in the US in particular, one of the main sources is the American Association of Publishers, the AAP, which has 1,200 participating publishers. And in their figures, the ebook sales have indeed declined. From January 2015 to May 2015, ebook sales of AAP reporting publishers declined by 10.2%. So quite a lot. Furthermore, for example, Hachette, one of the big 5 publishers in the US, gave an investor presentation in September 2015, and in it they claimed that the US ebook market has been declining for more than 1 year. New York Times also wrote about this and, in a pretty uncritical fashion, accepted these claims. So there are the claims that the ebook sales are down. And then there's the other claim that print sales are up. And this claim seems quite dubious actually. Because even in the AAP figures, the paperback sales are up, in percentage quite significantly even, but the hardback sales are down. And while the hardback sales are down in percentage less than what paperback sales are up, in revenue, in actual figures, the overall market has been down a little. Well, New York Times found another statistic that supports that print is experiencing resurgence, and this one came from the American Booksellers Association. The American Booksellers Association had 1,660 member store locations in 2010, whereas now in 2015 this number of stores has increased to 2,227. So 567 more bookstores in the US than in 2010. Wow, such rise. Except these are statistics. And one thing to notice in this statistic in particular is that in 2010 Borders was not yet bankrupt. You know, if you remember Borders, huge bookstore chain. And Borders was not a member of the American Booksellers Association, so its stores are not counted in these figures. And in 2010, Borders operated 686 stores in the US. So assuming no other changes have taken place, if you take away the Borders stores now that Borders is down and out, and replace these American Booksellers Association stores, you notice that actually the number of bookstores in the US has declined by 5%. There are many ways to build statistics, to each their own. But this one does not particularly support the claim that print sales have experienced a resurgence. Well, what about the claims that the ebook market is in decline then? One source, Author Earnings, attempts to monitor the Kindle store, which is where most ebooks in the world are sold, through the Amazon API. And according to Author Earnings, the market share of AAP reported publishers in Kindle store has declined from 60% that it was in January 2015 to 50% in September 2015. And what is on the rise is the sales of ebooks that do not have ISBN numbers. So if you sell print books, these generally have an ISBN number to identify them, certainly everything from a publisher has. But if you just sell ebooks, you don't necessarily have to acquire an ISBN number. And acquiring an ISBN number, well, it can be some sort of hassle. In the US, for example, they cost money. So there's even a financial investment involved. So there are a lot of ebooks on Amazon that do not have ISBN numbers. These sales are not tracked by the AAP, and furthermore, these sales are also not tracked by MarketWatch companies such as Nielsen. So these form the shadow market of the book market. And when we combine the figures from AAP and author earnings, and if we furthermore assume that self-publishers have a negligible market share in print, which is not an unreasonable assumption as many of these don't even have ISBN numbers, then we can come to a result that ebook market in January 2015 was probably already 37% of the trade book market in the US overall. And things get more interesting when we combine this with a recent Amazon statement that ebook sales on Amazon platform are up both in unit volume and in gross revenue. So, on Amazon the sales are up, AAP reported publishers sales are down, market share of non-AAP reported has increased a whole lot, even more than what the AAP sales are down. That results in a pretty convincing assumption, at least, that the ebook market in the US is currently already over 40% of the trade book market. So much for the decline then. Decline for the big five, yes. Decline for the market doesn't look like it. But if we accept this, then why are publishers investing in print? In New York Times, for example, it was told that many publishers have invested in new warehouses, new logistics arrangements. Why are they doing all this investment in print if ebook market is the one that is growing? And the explanation is strategic. Publishers enjoy a competitive advantage in print over people who are self-publishing. The publishers have the reach to all the bookstores, they have the efficient ways to print the books, they have efficient ways to deliver them. All of this gives them a competitive advantage. And in print, there are costs. Whereas in ebooks, once you write the book, there are no actual costs in producing additional copies, but in print side there is. So it's very difficult for a small self-publisher to enter the print market in any meaningful way, unlike in the digital market where they can compete completely equally. And in the print market, the way to get books sold is to have a good logistics setup that effectively puts books on the shelves of the bookstores and reduces the number of returns. There is even fairly recent research that indicates that impulse buys and buying what is available on the bookstore shelves right now are still a significant factor in driving print sales. And pursuing this print sales strategy is also good for the publishers because it reduces the power of Amazon. If we take a look at this from a point of view of Porter's 5 forces analysis, for example, now that with Borders gone, Amazon being this only 800-pound gorilla in the room, and then there's this huge variety of independent bookstores, it makes sense for the publishers to serve the independent bookstores because in the end, the bargaining power of the buyers, from the publisher's view, that is the independent bookstores, is much less than the bargaining power of Amazon, which means that publishers have the ability to make more profits. Likewise, fragmented independent bookstores raise barriers to entry to the market, another of the Porter's 5 forces, and this also supports the incumbents in holding on to their position. We can also see, as part of this move, there was this big battles between Amazon and the big 5 publishers last year and this year, and once these concluded, all the major publishers increased the ebook prices. By increasing the ebook prices, they are making paperbacks more attractive, and what do you know, paperback sales are actually quite a lot up, while hardcover sales are still down, because well, hardcover is still a lot more expensive than the ebook, so it's not as good of an alternative. But paperback sales are up, and this is precisely what the publishers have been going for. They have worked on getting their logistics up, they have worked on getting their warehouses up, their distribution set up, more effective ways to get the print books out to a more fragmented channel market. in which they can wield more power, and discouraging buyers from buying ebooks. Sounds like a plan. And definitely a plan that they have been working on. However, there's still the question, is this a good strategic choice? Focusing strongly on print, is that a good choice in the long term? For example, according to some of its earlier investor presentations, Hachette has based its strategies on the assumption that ebook sales are going to plateau at most 40% of the trade book market. However, when we take a look at the latest figures, it seems that that limit has already been breached. It's gone. So if this assumption was really critical part of why Hachette is doing what it's doing, then that might spell some trouble on the way. I would rather see the big publishers building their digital competencies both in publishing and in marketing, because let's face it, their digital competencies in marketing are not that great either, but that does not seem to be happening. Strange. Still, at this point, there's something to consider. Sometimes the best strategic choice is to remain on your existing market and not to move to a new market, even if your existing market is a declining one. Because one important consideration that is often forgotten is that there are profits to be made wherever there is a market. Even if it's a declining market, there are always going to be companies that are going to make great profits even on declining markets, if they know how to work them properly. And furthermore, if the capabilities of the firm are ill-suited for transition into a new market, then staying on your existing market might even be the only choice. And it can make full strategic sense. So overall, the articles have had it half right. Print is indeed not dead. Still not dead. Still going quite fine. Slow decline, but definitely still an attractive market, if you're one of the big publishers anyway. However, ebooks are in fact selling now more than ever, and their market share is bigger than ever. So the claims that the ebook disruption has been cancelled are greatly exaggerated. And if I were to guess, I would still place my bets in favor of the digital as the main market of the future, even if print can still continue competing alongside it. Which doesn't mean that there isn't room for companies to operate on print side only. There definitely is. However, this does lead me to question some of the strategic decisions that the publishers have been making. Especially when you consider that change often happens slower than you initially expect. So the ebook has not killed print yet. Some people were even guessing that it would kill print off already. That hasn't happened. But in the end, change often turns out to be much greater than it was initially expected to be. So it doesn't happen as fast as you thought it would, but in the end, much more is going to change than you thought it would. And I guess that's something to think about. So, that was my thought for today. Thank you all for tuning in, and I will see you next time. Bye bye. Thank you for watching. For more thoughts on lean, strategy, and business, please visit my YouTube channel, and if you like what you see, remember to subscribe.